It's time now for French Connections, our look at the intricacies of life here in France with Solange Mougin. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Jeannie.
So today you are focusing on the names of French baked goods, and that's after a French baker won the world championship of what's called in English the chocolate croissant. But in French, actually, the correct name for this pastry is a completely different story.
It sure is. As an American, if you enter a boulangerie or a bakery here in France and you ask for a croissant au chocolat or a chocolate croissant, you're likely to get some blank stares. And that is just the tip of the iceberg, as there are two main names in French for this pastry. But first, let's talk about Dimitri Bourdon. He is a 29-year-old who won, he's a French baker who won on March 10th, 2024, the Chocolate Croissant World Cup, or in French, La Coupe du Monde de la Chocolatine et du Pain au Chocolat. Now, why such a long-winded way of saying chocolate croissant? Well, it's because there is a long-standing debate in France over whether it should be called a pain au chocolat or a chocolatine, as we're about to hear.
Vous êtes absolument le bienvenu.
Ouais, bah, vous aussi au monde du pain au chocolat.
Alors là, ce que vous faites, c'est injuste parce que ça me forcera à vous donner mon t-shirt.
So in this rivalry of names, is there one that's more prevalent than the other?
There is. The vast majority of French people, well, they call it pain au chocolat or chocolate bread. But in the Southwest, there are die-hard chocolatine advocates. And it is such a cheerfully heated debate and topic that actually in 2018, conservative MPs tried to pass an amendment to protect the term chocolatine. Now, Parliament did not bite on this, but the rivalry roars its head regularly here in France.
Je voudrais 2 pains au chocolat, s'il vous plaît. 2 pains au chocolat? Non, ici, ce sont des chocolatines, madame.
Now, historically, which one is correct? Well, linguists actually generally lean in favor of chocolatine because it's the initial name in the 1830s. It was similar to this. It's thought to have been chocolatine croissant, croissant as it arrived here in France from Austria, like the croissant and like other viennoiseries.
Yes, Vienna, viennoiserie. That's another thing to learn. Solange, it's not just chocolate croissants that cause debate and confusion in France. Tell us.
No, for example, in eastern France, le pain au raisin or raisin bread is actually called an escargot or a snail because of its round spiral shape speckled with raisins. Now, all of these differences and debates, they have very much to do with the desire to hold on to one's regional heritage.
Ce qu'on voit aujourd'hui, c'est que la linguistique ou les régionalismes linguistiques du langage sont un peu les derniers remparts, si on veut, pour affirmer son identité régionale, son appartenance à une région.
All right, this is something that might surprise you all. There are actually some names of French baked goods that make people a little uncomfortable.
Yes, they do. There are actually a number of pastries that have sexually weighted names or refer to body parts in slang. For example, there's la pine, le gland, and le pied de nonne, which translates to nun's fart, or in English it's called a nun's puff. Now, on a more serious note, there are also racist names. Luckily, most have been replaced, and the most famous is actually a round ball of meringue covered in chocolate. There was even a 1995 court case to stop the term from being used.
Tête de nègre, c'est un peu le procès du racisme ambiant.
Nous considérons que l'emploi du terme tête de nègre pour la diffusion de produits de confiserie qui sont pour certains une caricature grossière du visage d'une personne d'origine africaine constitue une diffamation.
Now, on a sweeter note, you're going to tell us about 2 treats that pay tribute to one of my favorite regions in France, Brittany.
Mine too. And they are both very heavy on butter and on sugar. Now, the first is the Paris-Brest. This wheel-shaped pâte à choux with praline is one of my favorites. And it's an invention. It was invented and it was named after a cycling race.
Je vous présente Louis Durand, mon arrière-grand-père, donc qui a inventé en 1909 ce gâteau nommé le Paris-Brest, qui est là, en grand, forme de roue de vélo.
Paris-Brest et retour, 1182 km d'une seule traite.
But the pastry that takes, in my view, the Brittany cake is the quignaman. This literally translates to butter cake in Breton, but such a bland name wouldn't have done justice, doesn't do justice, to its decadence.
Le meilleur du monde. Il n'y a pas photo.
Une tuerie, ça. C'est un machin. Il y a plus de beurre que le gâteau. C'est trop bon. Le diamant, c'est quoi? De l'enfance, peut-être.
I still can't quite pronounce that one. Quignon.
Yeah, it's
All
really
right.
hard.
Solange, you're going to wrap up now with one last pastry whose name almost didn't make literary history, but is today very symbolic.
It is. That's the madeleine, and specifically the madeleine de Proust. And it is our words du jour. And it refers to anything of food, a smell, a sound that brings a person back to childhood. And it comes from Proust's novel In Search of Lost Time. But actually, in initial versions, in initial drafts, it was not a madeleine.
Au départ, il s'agissait d'un simple pain rassis, puis de pain grillé, de biscottes et enfin d'une madeleine.
Il finit par petite Madeleine, c'est d'abord parce que Madeleine est un prénom qu'on retrouve tout le temps chez Proust. C'est Marie-Madeleine, très important Marie-Madeleine. Et surtout, PM, petite Madeleine, ce sont les initiales de Marcel Proust.
Now, whether you have a Madeleine de Proust relationship with it or not, I think it is safe to say that many French people have a much-loved gastronomic moment in their week, and this comes from the emblematic croissant. Even if 70 to 80% of them are now industrially made, many of them frozen, the croissant remains the #1 eaten viennoiserie or baked good in France. The French actually eat over 3 a month on average. So even if its origin story is highly contested, its name, because of its crescent shape, is not. So if in doubt in a boulangerie, just ask for a croissant.
You can't go wrong with a good croissant. Solange, thank you so much for that look at pastries and the histories of pastries here in France. Don't forget, if you want to see more French connections, you can always check out our website. The address, of course, france24.com.